Hello, everybody. Welcome to our brand new webinar where we explore all the wonderful ways you can end a school year using SpacesEDU. I hope you're all hanging in there as we approach the finish line of yet another school year. I know you're busy, and let's face it, probably a little tired too, but that's okay. This is why I'm here. I'm here to inspire you to use SpacesEDU for the end of the year. The countdown to summer is officially on, and with the end of the school year approaching, we can almost hear the collective sighs of relief echoing through the halls. And you're probably recognizing yourself in this comic as well. Perhaps you're waiting by the clock with bated breath for the final day of the school year. And, I know you've been running on teacher fuel. Coffee, anyone? Extra shots of espresso, just to keep up with your students' never-ending energy. But here's the thing. We're going to help you navigate the last stretch and finish strong, and all of that using SpacesEDU. I completely understand that by this point, your energy levels might be resembling a cell phone on its last bar of battery. So think of this webinar as a well-deserved breather, a chance to recharge and gather some fantastic ideas to wrap up the year on a high note. But before we continue, I want to give each and every one of you watching a shout out for your incredible resilience and unwavering dedication. Despite the sleepless nights spent marking or meticulously crafting lesson plans, you've consistently brought your A game to the classroom. Your commitment to shaping young minds is truly extraordinary. So for today's agenda, here's what we have planned. So we'll just quickly introduce myself, then we'll head into the implementation ideas, and I'll show you how to configure your SpacesEDU class using all of these fun tips. Just a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Tatiana. I'm the SpacesEDU Education Training and Engagement Specialist. I'm not an educator myself, but I did work in higher education. And although I don't quite understand or know what it's like to get to this point in the year as you're nearing the end of the term, end of the school year, however, I do remember having similar feeling when we would reach April in academic advising. That's when things would start to slow down and you were just craving that quiet time so you could work on, on projects until things started picking up again in May and you're welcoming first year students and helping them. Anyways, I know the cyclical nature of education and how that feels like. I'm sure you're just waiting to get to that finish line. So all of these tips that I'm about to give you, and they're all kind of categorized based on the energy spectrum here that we have on the screen. So think about where you fall and where you find yourself on this energy spectrum at this specific time of the year. Are you running on empty? You're just super tired. You don't have much energy to do anything at this point. Or are you um, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you're just still buzzing with so much energy and you're willing to, go out with a bang? Or are you in the middle, still positive, you feel like your tank is half full, you are not fully committed to do big tasks at this point in time, but still want to put in some sort of effort? Let's start with, if you're running on empty, we've got your back as you approach the end of the school year, like I said, and our mission is to guide you through this last stretch to ensure you achieve maximum impact with minimal effort. And guess what? The key to our magical formula lies in involving your students in the process. That's right. So make them do a little bit of the work. So you're not the only one, putting all that effort on SpacesEDU. So the first recommendation we have is a journal reflection. So why not ask your students to reflect on their academic and personal growth? Your students can post a journal entry within their individual space to reflect on their school year. They can create their own prompt, or they can consider a prompt from this document here. All of this information will be included in the guide that you can refer to, but if you'd like, you can also just quickly scan the QR code on the screen to get access to those additional resources. So here you have an example of a journal reflection posted by a student, and this is something you can recommend your students do as well. This would be also a fantastic exercise for students who require differentiated instruction. The activity should be assigned to their individual space or in a within a group space where they can collaborate with other students, possibly who have similar learning styles. You could ask your students to reflect on questions such as, what stuck with you this school year? And you can instruct them to share their thoughts, perhaps through a video or an audio recording if they work better that way. You can encourage them to reflect on their own learning and share their experiences with their peers if they're within that group space. You may also want to provide some examples or guiding questions to help students get started. Here are just a couple examples, like, what is one thing you didn't understand at the start of the year, but now understand? Explain how you came to understand it. What is one concept or topic you are still struggling to understand at the moment? Explain why you are struggling and what you plan to do to overcome this challenge. And finally, what would you like to learn more about next year? Explain why you are interested in this topic and how you hope to learn more about it. Next, we recommend doing a self-assessment for students. So in an activity, you could instruct students to complete a self-assessment to reflect on their competencies and areas for improvement. They could use statements such as, I can, and I show this by doing that. I can get better at, and I will do this as my next steps. So you're really focusing here on their strengths, um, evidence showcasing their strengths, what their goal is, how they can improve, and how they will achieve this goal. So what their next steps are. And as you can see here on the screen, we have a student who has completed this exercise on SpacesEDU, and they filmed themselves reflecting on their competencies. So the self-assessment doesn't have to be simply completed by text, especially if you're dealing with younger learners, at the primary school level, perhaps are not strong writers yet. They could opt for something more auditory, whether that's a video recording or simply audio recording as well. All of this is possible through our multimedia attachments on SpacesEDU. All right, so let's move on to the next step above, running on empty, which is your tank is half full. You made it this far, you're cruising through the school year like a pro, but even the smoothest journeys could use a little turbo boost to go out on a high note. We're about to explore some ways to elevate your classroom activities and bid farewell to the year in style. One of the ways you could achieve this is by doing exit portfolios. So you could ask students to review their portfolio individual space, and they could select the top 5 work samples they are most proud of from various subjects. You may choose to have them select posts solely based on the learning objectives you focus on as a class. And in the comments section of each work sample they select, students can explain their selection using text or multimedia. With these questions in mind, again, feel free to scan the QR code or simply wait for the guide to refer back to these resources. But students could simply comment and reflect within that comment section. If they are a bit more tech savvy, or if they are, older, you could create an individual space for them called exit portfolio. And what they could do is they could sift through their existing spaces and simply copy posts into this new space. And I will show you how to do this in a little while through student account, but it's very simple, so students could copy their own posts and kind of curate their own exit portfolio space on their SpacesEDU account. Next recommendation we have is a more of a class initiative where students could participate in a virtual yearbook activity. So this is sort of a yearbook for the whole class to share. It's digital. So what you could do is you could create an activity within the class space, prompting your students to celebrate the school year with the following topics in mind. They could share memories from the school year, meaning they could reflect on their favorite moments, including events, trips, and perhaps experiences they shared with their classmates and teachers. They could even share gratitude messages and express their gratitude towards yourselves, towards other teachers, mentors, friends, and family members who helped them through the school year. They could share inspirational quotes or messages, maybe a quote that resonated with them throughout the year or an inspiring message that could uplift their classmates. They can also share advice to future students, offer advice to incoming students on how to navigate the school, make new friends, how to get involved in extracurricular activities at the school. Students can also share their goals for the future and what they hope to achieve after graduating from the school or from moving, from one grade to the next. They could share what their goals are and their aspirations. Students can also write thank you notes to classmates and teachers who made a significant impact on their lives during the school year. And finally, they can share personal stories or experiences that made the school year special to them. So encourage students to include media files in their submissions and to leave comments on each other's activity posts after you have published them to the class space. So what you're seeing right here is an example of a post or a submission from a student. So they attached a nice photo here from their favorite memory from the school year. So that could be a neat way for students to just share photos, any type of media. If they can share up to 10 media files within an activity or a post. So it will be a nice gallery for students to kind of sort through and browse, and also just kind of a fun way to engage in the comments section as well. We've reached the final level of the energy spectrum, which is the Energizer Bunny of teachers. We have some ideas for you to help you channel that boundless energy and make the last days of the school year truly memorable. What we would love for you to do is send a year-end newsletter to the family channel on SpacesEDU within the messages feature. You could get creative. You can use a Canva template that we've linked here through the QR code to send to families. You can address some common topics that they may be interested in as the school year comes to a close. For example, you could share what your class has learned this year. You could suggest ways they can support learning over the summer to their student. And you could offer advice on how to prepare for the upcoming transition to the next grade. And by sharing your insights and these tips, you can help families stay informed and involved in their child's education even after the school year ends. And here's a fun tip. The curriculum tags feature in the right panel of your feed provides a summary of the learning objectives that your class has been working on throughout the school year. So to create a useful summary, you could consider selecting the top 3 most frequently used curriculum tag to highlight in your summary. Next activity we recommend is a goal setting activity for all your students that they could post within their individual space. You could encourage students to reflect on their learning experiences and set goals for the upcoming year. And just another great way to elevate this goal setting activity is to incorporate the power of yet as a lesson and include that in the activity as well. Again, this is wonderful for students who are on differentiated instruction. It does teach them about perseverance, resilience, and this is a great activity in general for the whole class. It encourages students to reframe their negative self-talk, and it's an opportunity for growth and learning. You could ask students to think about how they can turn their negative self-talk into a positive affirmation that will help them achieve their goals. You could also ask your students to create a visual representation of their goal and the steps they will take to achieve it. This could be a poster, a vision board, or a digital collage. You can encourage them to include their positive affirmations and the power of yet in their visual representation as well. This activity can help students to develop a growth mindset and learn the power of perseverance and resilience. By reframing negative self-talk as an opportunity for growth, students can build confidence and achieve their small goals as well. So in this screenshot right here, we're seeing an activity that I've created for goal setting with the power of yet as the main theme. And the photo over here is a visual representation of things students can't do yet. And this was just completed as a class, as a classroom activity. But again, you can get creative and ask students to do this individually as well. And finally, we also would recommend using the reporting space. And this is a feature only available for SpacesEDU Pro users. It's an add-on feature, actually. So you may want to confirm with your school if you have access to this feature. But the reporting space is basically a summative portfolio or a visual report card, if you will. You could bookmark evidence of learning into the reporting space to celebrate learning and highlight achievements for each of your students. And it also allows you to personalize each student's summary statement and areas of learning to commemorate academic accomplishments, awards, personal growth, what specific subjects. You could even highlight areas of improvement, next steps, and strengths as well. So I would also encourage you to involve families and students as they can reflect on posts in the comments section. And here's a fun tip. You can actually download and share a copy of the student summary with families. So you could download it as a PDF and email it or share it with families from your SpacesEDU account, perhaps within the messages feature. If you are interested in learning more about SpacesEDU Pro features for your school or district, don't hesitate to contact us at pro@spacesedu.com, or you can simply reach out to our support team at hello@spacesedu.com for more information. All right, so I did want to highlight these features in action just to show you how you can set up your SpacesEDU account efficiently and effectively use these tips moving forward. So let me dive into my SpacesEDU class right here to highlight a few things. First, I wanted to go into the activities tab here. I did mention activities quite a bit throughout today's webinar. And the reason for this is because you can actually schedule activities ahead of time, which is nice. So they kind of sit in a queue, as you see here. It does indicate that these activities are not yet visible. And the reason for this is because they've been scheduled to start on June 1st. And I've also gone ahead and assigned a due date for these activities. So I mentioned all three examples here throughout the presentation. So you could easily do this from your SpacesEDU account, whether that's from the feed or directly within the activities tab. You would click on the plus create button. And from here, you can click on new activity. But before we go there, what's neat within the activity portal, you have access to any activities that you've created in the past. So once you create these end of the year activities, they will live in this portal and you can reuse them next year. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just reuse and recycle the same material, making things definitely more effective and efficient, especially as you get busier throughout this time of the year. But to just begin this activity setup, you would simply click on New Activity here. You want to make sure you're in the right class, especially if you're tied to multiple classes. And you also want to select the appropriate space. So if we're talking about a classroom initiative, then for sure the class space would make sense. But if we're encouraging more personal reflection, self-assessment, now you do want to select an individual space and make sure that it's going to a space that is relevant to that type of activity, especially because you will be publishing these submissions as posts eventually. So that does determine visibility as well. So just a thing to remember here is to select the right space from the get-go. As for students, if you're assigning it in the class space, then you definitely want to assign it to all your students. If you're assigning it to students who are in differentiated learning, then it would make sense to kind of handpick the ones that you want and assign it to their individual space, as I mentioned. Next, what you'll do is you give your activity a title and include a description as well for guidelines. And you may want to choose to include media files as well for reference or just additional resources. And you can add up to 10 media files. And this is a crucial section here if you wanted to schedule these activities ahead of time. Within the important dates element here, you would simply click on Start Date to toggle this on, and then select a date and time. If this is an end of the year activity, then it would make sense to start it perhaps in June. This is why I selected June 1st as a start date. And due date, you may want to have that a couple days before the end of the school year. So let's say the Monday, June 26th. You can also choose to add curriculum tags if you want to these activities, or simply leave it as is. And once you're satisfied with all the setup, you would then click on Assign on the top right corner, and it would appear, if you would leave this section here, it would appear within activities here, as you can see. All right, moving on to the Spaces tab, where I can show you how to create an additional space for exit portfolios. So from here, you would click on the plus create button and select individual spaces. Since we're aiming to create that one-on-one space, personal, private space for each of our students, then we click next to continue. We do want to create one for all of our students, and then hit next to confirm. And from here, we'll be prompted to customize the space. So we'll give the name exit portfolio. And you can also include additional guidelines in the description as well. Select your best work samples from the school year and explain why in the comments section. Simply copy each post to this individual space. And you can hit save. And the next step, as you may know this already, is to make sure that it's visible to all students by clicking on the review settings link down below. Make sure that the space is active, and you can also give families access to this You may choose to hold off on giving them access to comments. Perhaps you just want to wait until the exit portfolio has been fully curated. That way, you'll be able to give the green light to families to start giving feedback. We'll hit save. Now, this should be visible to all students in my class under the Spaces tab. All right. And now moving on to the Messages tab. I did mention the year-end newsletter you could send to families and even students if you want to. We have channels here on within SpacesEDU and in the Messages section, and channels are essentially your group chats. We have channels for students and families combined, or respectively for families and students as well. If I go into the families channel here, you'll see I've already communicated a sweet message, short and sweet message to families to thank them for their support. And I've included the newsletter as well that I created through Canva. This took me literally 10 minutes or even less to complete. As long as you have the content already, you can simply copy and paste that into the Canva template. Everything else is already done for you. So this is a great way to, engage families and thank them for their collaboration from the school year. And finally, just from the teacher account, I do want to show you the reporting space as well. And this is, as I mentioned, a SpacesEDU Pro add-on, and this is something you may want to confirm with your school if you have access to. But from the Spaces tab here, you will see a reporting space banner up here. Currently, if you see that the I is crossed off, this means that it's not accessible to students or families for that matter. So perhaps you do want to wait a little bit once you've curated the reporting space before giving them access. But really quickly, I wanted to show you how you can curate the space, the reporting space for your students. This can be done directly from the feed, or you can go into all your already created spaces and sort through the content. But the feed is a nice way to see all of that information up front, and you can, because it allows you to sort by student on the left-hand side. So you can sort by your students, so you can see all the relevant posts on the feed. And once you've identified a post that you'd like to bookmark and add to their reporting space, you would simply click on the bookmark icon here. And because this post includes multiple students, I can select the one or all students that would like to add this to their reporting space, and then select OK to confirm. And now it's officially been bookmarked. So this is for a post that's shared among students. If it's just one student, what you would do is click on, again, the bookmark. Oh, wrong example here. But let me just go back to a post that I've already bookmarked just to show you as an example. So I've unbookmarked this, and to add, you would just click on the bookmark, and it's a much quicker process. And to view all the content you've curated as after completing all those bookmarking exercises, you would head into the Spaces tab over here, go to View Reporting Space. And again, it gives you the ability to sort through by student. So I just wanted to show you a reporting space that's already been set up. So we have a nice summary statement up here. And we have media files as well. You may choose to include. And highlight areas of learning. Here I've focused on strengths, areas of improvement, and next steps. Again, you can customize this as you'd like. And on the right-hand side, you also see the curriculum tags that have been applied for the specific students and which ones are included in this reporting space. And another neat thing with the reporting space is the ability to pin 3 posts to the top of the reporting space. So as you can see, I have one here, second and third. And if I want to, I can also change the order at which they appear by clicking on that and replacing the order as well. The reason you may opt for pinning posts is because normally the posts that you bookmark here to the reporting space, they appear in chronological order. So if there's something that you'd like to highlight that was from the start of the year, then it will be buried in the reporting space. So a great way to highlight that information is to pin it to the top of the reporting space. And as I mentioned earlier, you can download this student summary statement here by simply clicking on the download button up top, and it will appear here on your computer. So you're able to share this PDF version of the student summary with your families. Okay, so let me actually now show you how students can copy posts to their exit portfolios. I'm going to log out of my teacher account here and log into my student account, student example. I'm going to head into the class in question. So as a student, I may choose again to navigate from the feed. So I have access to all the posts I've ever made or any posts that concern me. And if I want to include a post into the exit portfolio, I could simply copy the post and make sure it gets published into that specific individual space. So first step includes identifying a post that I'd like to include in the individual space in question. So let's start with this. Then I'll click on the bottom right corner here, those three dots, and then copy post. This will pop up. I can simply click next. All the information is there. I can choose to also edit the information if I wanted to provide a reflection. I can have a separate content for that and include it in that post description. And then I will select the space where I'd like to publish this, and I'll select the exit portfolio, which is the space I'm curating. Then I'll hit post. And just like that, if we go into the Spaces tab and into the exit portfolio, you'll see that I was able to copy the same post. So the content is identical, and students can reflect in the comment section as well. So two ways they can share their reflections, whether that's through the comment section or simply adding additional context and content to the post description. Well, that was all from me today. And these are just some quick tips. But like I mentioned, we will be circulating a comprehensive guide with all the steps you need to take to achieve these awesome end of the year activities on SpacesEDU. If you have any questions, though, feel free to leverage our help center or email our support team at hello@spacesedu.com for any of your tech questions. And I want to thank you so much for watching today's webinar, and I hope you have a fantastic summer. On behalf of the SpacesEDU team here, we hope that you take this summer break to recharge and relax and hopefully go somewhere warm and sunny in preparation for September. Again, have a wonderful vacation and see you all in September.